So hi, hello, and welcome again. And in today's video, I would like to talk about the question that I received from one of my viewers. So what's the disadvantage of using a 25 times eyepiece for microscope, that is? Well, the textbook answer would be those 25 times eyepieces do not allow you to see more because the resolution is not there. In other words, you can see it bigger, but you do not see more details because everything is simply more blurry compared to the 10 times eyepieces. But actually, the issue is a little bit more complicated than that, and there are a couple of cases where even a 25 times eyepiece actually has a few advantages. Now, I think not huge advantages, but maybe there are cases where you indeed might want to use one of those here. So in this video, I would therefore like to do the following. I'm going to first talk about the difference in magnification, or not the difference, but a short explanation of magnification in microscope, simply as a short recap for those of you who are new to the topic. I'm going to keep that short. I'm going to now go over and I'm going to make a direct comparison. So I'm going to put a few things under the microscope and we're going to directly compare how those eyepieces perform. I will then talk about the advantages and disadvantages, not just about the disadvantages, but also about those rare advantages. Not many of them, but I mean, there are a few. Then the question is, if the disadvantages actually outweigh, then why do microscope companies actually include them at all? That's an interesting one. And why I think you should, it's going to surprise some of you, why you should still buy a 25 times eyepiece even though you're not going to see a lot more. Okay, so that's kind of what I would like to talk about in this video, and I'm going to start off with the first one, and that is let's have a short recap about the magnification in microscopes. So I've got two microscope objective and eyepiece combinations over here. This is a 10 times eyepiece. Unfortunately, the writing came off already a little bit. WF stands for wide field 10 times, and a 10 times objective, and over here it's a 25 times eyepiece and a 4 times objective, and the total magnification is calculated quite easily by multiplying the eyepiece magnification by the objective. So 10 times 10 is 100 times, and over here 25 times 4 is also 100 times. So both of them magnify the same amount. Does it really make a difference which combination you use? Actually, it does make a difference. You should always use this combination over here with as large of a objective magnification as possible, because it's the objective that determines the clarity or the resolution of the image. So this combination over here will give you a better image quality than this one over here, even if the magnification is the same. Now, you can actually see a number over here, the 0.25. That's the so-called numerical aperture. And over here it's only 0.1, and the numerical aperture tells you something about the resolution, about the clarity of the image, and the higher the value, the more details you're able to see. So because this one is 0.25, you're able to see more details with this combination than with this combination, even though the magnification is the same. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have now indeed a direct comparison between those two by putting something directly under the microscope. Let's have a look. Well, so this is how it looks like under the microscope. Here on the left side, 10 times eyepiece, 10 times objective, 100 times total magnification. Same on the right side here, that's the 25 times eyepiece, 4 times objective, same magnification as well. Now, the elephant in the room, you're going to say, it's not correct. That's not the same magnification. The circle over here is much bigger, right? As a matter of fact, no, that's not what we're looking at right now. What we have to do is we have to directly compare the structures. And you see the structure over here and the structure over here actually have the same size. Okay, so the magnification indeed is the same. What is different over here is the so-called apparent field of view. So this means that when you're looking through the eyepiece of a 25 times eyepiece, what you see, you actually, at least in this case over here, you're seeing more of the image, because the so-called the angular field of view is actually much larger. So over here, the eyepiece, the 10 times eyepiece, it looks a little bit more narrow, more constrained, and the 25 times eyepiece over here just gives me a more immersive appearance, because it fills more of your field of view. That could already be actually one of the advantages, that at a certain given magnification with a 25 times eyepiece, at least with the one that I've got over here, you're actually able to see more of the specimen. Right? But that has nothing to do now with the image quality, and at this magnification right now, on screen at least, I don't see a big difference. I mean, both of them kind of look okay. Over here on the side, it looks a little bit blurry over here, but that could also be because when I took a picture with my mobile phone through the eyepiece, maybe I was not holding it straight. Yeah, so it does look a little bit blurry over here. It's better up here, so maybe the mobile phone was a little bit not quite straight, but we ignore that for right now. In any case, what we have to do is if you want to directly compare the image, then we have to actually zoom in a little bit more, and this is what I have done. Yeah, over here, I zoomed in now quite a bit. Over here on the left side, that is the 10 times eyepiece, and over here that is the 25 times eyepiece. Now both structures quite enlarged, and you can see that indeed there is it looks a little bit more blurry. Okay, so it does lack a little bit details. Not surprising, because the objective itself did not have the numerical aperture, right? It's the 4 times objective and simply enlarged. So you do not really see that so much when you're just looking through it under the microscope, at least not at such a comparatively low magnification, but there is a difference, right? And for this reason, you do not really gain a lot more by just increasing the eyepiece magnification, because you're constrained by the physical laws of light, so to say, right? So, however, I have actually tried something else as well. So I now tried to actually keep the objective the same over here. So I used the 60 times objective in both cases, and now here on the left side I've got a 600 times magnification, and here on the right side I have a 1500 times magnification. Well, generally there is the rule of thumb that anything magnified above 1000 times is so-called empty magnification, so that we're not gaining any details. It just looks blurrier, larger but blurrier, right? But we actually are able to see that. Let's have a focus on here. We want to actually look at the central part over here, and I would like to compare them right now. Okay, so let's bring both of these central parts here up to the same magnification on screen, so that we can compare that directly, because right now we cannot compare them because the magnification is different. Yeah, this is how it looks like, right? You see over here, this this picture on the left, it looks much more clear than this one over here. Yeah, it does look more blurry, even though this one has been magnified more. So I did not have to magnify it as much on screen, but still it looks blurrier. Right. So, and the reason is that essentially with the 1500 times we're already way above what microscopes are able to resolve, and maybe we also have some optical issues as well. That maybe the lens, the eyepiece lens was contained also some aberrations and lens errors, and all of that added together actually results in the image becoming less clear than with a lower magnifying eyepiece. Yeah, so this kind of already shows that at least concerning image quality, we're not really gaining anything by using the 25 times eyepiece. So now let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of 25 times eyepieces. Let's have a look at the advantages first. It's actually the first point over here I did not talk about yet. You're getting a larger DOF depth of field at a given total magnification. I think it's really important to understand now the eyepieces do not increase the depth of field, but if you want to have a larger depth of field at a given magnification, then you can actually go down with the objective magnification, and then you can use the larger depth of field of a lower magnifying objective. Honestly, that's could be an advantage. I've never really seen this as a huge advantage, but I mean, that's still one of the advantages that there are. You can use lower magnification objectives, and then you're getting a higher depth of field. You get a larger field of view. This is already what I talked about, is at least with this eyepiece, you can actually see the image in a larger circle. That's the larger field of view, at least the larger apparent field of view. And it's also easier to see small things. So when we're going back to this one over here, if you actually want to see this here in the center a little bit larger, you just switch over to a larger eyepiece, and then you are able to see it larger, right? Yeah, sure, it might be a little bit more blurry, but at least it's more convenient to see it larger, and then it's less strain on the eye. Now there are of course a whole range of disadvantages as well, and I would say one of the bigger ones is of course the smaller eye relief that those 25 times eyepieces have. What does this mean? If I want to look through the eyepiece, I have to take off my glasses. I have to move it all the way in front of my eye, and I'm actually, or my eyelashes are actually touching the front lens already. So it's got to be really close to the eye in order for me to see the complete picture. So, and when I'm wearing glasses, then I'm not able to move as close, and I'm not able to see the full picture. Right. The situation is different with this eyepiece over here. It has a large eye relief, and when I look through it, then I can see the full field of view without any problems. So it's also more suitable for people who are wearing glasses. Of course, lower light, it means when you're magnifying more, generally you have less light, and that's a disadvantage. It's kind of obvious. And the last one here, that is the main one, the textbook one, is that there is indeed yeah, you can get a higher magnification, so-called empty magnification. It means you're just seeing the things bigger, but without much more detail because the resolution is too low. It's called empty magnification. So this begs the question, if the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, why do microscope companies actually decide to include them with their microscopes? Right? And actually this, the reason has one to do, which is mostly marketing. Those eyepieces essentially allow you to two and a half fold increase the magnification 2.5 times. This means that you're able to sell microscopes that have a 40 times objective. Usually the introductory microscopes have those, with a 25 times eyepiece to a total magnification of 1,000 times. And those microscopes that have a 100 times oil immersion objective, wow, times 25, you have a magnification of 2,500 times. Bigger is always better, right? So the larger numbers are actually a marketing thing. So this is, I think, one of the reasons, and because sometimes consumers, they don't really know what to look for in a microscope. So what do? And they always go for the bigger numbers are always better. It's almost like in the computer, the faster computer, more gigahertz is always better, right? Yeah, or more gears in a bicycle is always better, right? So, and this is kind of allows microscope companies to reduce kind of a microscope down to a number. Yeah. So the microscope companies are not really lying when they're saying, well, it's able to magnify up to 1,000 times. So, for example, we've got a 40 times objective, right, and a 25 times eyepiece. All of a sudden, we've got 1,000 times, right? But of course, mathematically, that's correct. Yeah, but you're not going to see a lot. So that is, I think, one of the reasons. And the question is now, why should you still buy one? I think. I mean, I've tried to make the case now that the advantages are not really there, and I still think that you should buy one. And I'm going to show you the reason why I think it's a good idea to buy one in any case, regardless of all of the advantages and disadvantages. And the reason is this. Look at this. This is AliExpress from China. Look how much it costs. €4.32. I mean, it's around maybe $5. I mean, those things are extremely cheap. This is also one of the reasons why microscope companies choose to include them, because essentially it costs them nothing. They're so cheap, and it allows you to sell the microscopes with a significantly higher magnification. And the reason why I recommend that you get them in any case is because they're so cheap and you just experiment around with them. And then you can always decide for yourself whether it's worth it or not. Just be careful. If you try to, I've seen some online retailers that sell those cheap eyepieces for a significantly overpriced. So you got to be a little bit careful. Really, the value of those is really not more than a couple of euros or dollars, right? And if you say essentially bigger is always better, in this case, I recommend that you not only buy yourself a 25 eyepiece, but also a 2 times Barlow lens. Wow, look at this. Isn't this cool? I've now doubled the magnification to 50 times. And you know what? You can keep on doing that. Look at this. Now I've got 100 times. Isn't this cool? Yeah, bigger is always better, right? And now if I add a 40 times objective to that, 100 times 40, wow, 4,000 times magnification. Isn't this cool? Of course, total nonsense. But if you're still interested, I actually did try out this combination. Here is a new video, and that's where I tested this as well. From my side, it's all what I would like to share with you. I wish you all the best. Happy microbe hunting as always, and like and subscribe, please, to support the channel a little bit. Yeah, click the subscribe button. All the best. Bye-bye.